Remember to subscribe and hit the notification button to keep up to date with our latest videos.
What is going on, you guys? My name is Marcus, and you are watching another episode of Roads Untraveled. Today is very special. We have jumped in a F10 BMW M5, and we're going to take it for a spin. It's been tuned by our friends over at JRS Auto in Burnaby, British Columbia, and they have offered up the car for the day. It's going to be a really good time. This is only the second M5 I've ever driven. We tested a manual transmission E60 M5 with the V10, so this will be definitely a very good comparison. Let's go for a drive and cover some miles very quickly. So this F10 M5 has a twin turbo 4.4 liter V8 under the hood. Beamer was actually, I believe they were the first to put basically the hot V. They basically put the turbos inside the V to reduce spool time, to get really meaty low-end torque, and great efficiency. So this car will actually get, if you're not hammering on it, like close to 30 miles to the gallon. Pretty impressive for a twin turbo V8. From the factory, this one with the competition pack puts down 575 horsepower at the crank, and this has been tuned. It's got a tune on it. It's got an Akrapovic exhaust on the back, and so that's basically good for 650 horsepower at the wheels, or very close to that, and about 550 foot-pounds of torque. So here's the thing. This is the last M5 that's rear-wheel drive exclusively. Now the new one is all-wheel drive, but the front wheels only, do stuff when the rear loses traction, for fuel economy and all that stuff. But this one's full-on rear drive, and we've got traction in Sport right now. Steering I have in Sport Plus. It is crazy artificially heavy, but we're gonna dive into some corners, see how it feels. So we've got the dampers in Comfort right now. Now this is a competition pack, so everything is kind of stiffened up, and car's a little bit quicker on paper and on the track, more importantly. But on the street, even Comfort with the competition pack is still, it's good. You could feel a lot of stuff still, but it's still an M5. Now the big elephant in the room, this vehicle weighs 4,300 pounds. 4,300 pounds, which is way too much for any car. That's way too heavy. We did drive a Touareg, which I think was close to that too, but you do get what you pay for with this car. You get an insane amount of horsepower, close to 600 from the factory under the hood, exhaust and a tune, and some intake scoops in the front, carbon fiber intake scoops, and you get some decent power. Having recently driven an S63 AMG, the interior of this car is so much more of a M experience. It's so much more of a sports car experience in here. Now, obviously, the S63 is almost $100,000 more than this car, so that's one thing on its own. But all right, so traction is in sport, but we're basically just gonna mat it from first gear and see how she does. Second gear, finally getting some traction in third gear. Barely got traction in third gear. And wow. 0 to 90 miles an hour happens incredibly quickly in this car. It does take a second to get going though. There is no traction in first and second gear, and that's really where, with the new car, that all-wheel drive comes in handy. And the 0 to 60 time on the new car is almost a second faster than this. This does 0 to 60 in about 4.4 seconds, which is nothing to sneeze at, okay? That's, you know, for a 4,300 pound vehicle, that is insane. But the new one definitely does have more performance off the line, and it has a revised version of this 4.4 liter V8. One of the best things about this car that is much improved over a lot of the older BMWs and the SMGs, this is a dual clutch, proper BMW DCT. Now, I drove an E92 M3 a couple of years back, and I was impressed with that DCT, and that was like a 2009 or 2010 car. This is a 2014 M5, and the DCT is virtually instant. Obviously, you can get this car optioned out with carbon ceramic brakes. This one has the steel brakes, obviously a lot cheaper when you do need to replace the rotors and stuff, because in a $150,000 vehicle like this, I mean, even that, I wouldn't want to spend 10 grand every few years on carbon ceramic rotors. But third gear, 4,000 RPM, dies a little bit near the top, but that's just about 18 kilometers an hour in a matter of seconds. The power band's very nice in this car. In contrast to the E60 M5 with the V10 that I drove, this one's a lot more usable around town. This is a much more practical vehicle, even though it's bigger and about 250 pounds heavier than the E60. It's just much more practical in the sense that the power band is all torque. It's all low and mid-range torque. That's what this V8 does. And that's why they put the turbos in the V too, right? Small turbos, and so you get torque instantly. And that being said, traction does kick in a lot more aggressively than it does on the E60 M5. You get a little bit of pops, but they're not like, you know, crazy rich pops that you get on the overrun that really bang. It's just kind of sounds like it's very muffled, you know. This is a very muffled car, even with that aftermarket full titanium Akrapovic exhaust on the back. Oof. It could use some more volume, let's just say that. It sounds good from the outside for sure, but nothing compares to the E60's V10. That engine just is a dream. Now there's no comparison. I mean, this with 600 plus horsepower at the wheels is miles faster than that car, way faster. You do get a lot of new tech in this car. You get heads-up display, you do get fancy traction control. Like I said, carbon ceramic brakes are an option. So it also has aftermarket shift paddles on here that JRS have put in the car. Carbon fiber, they're a little bit bigger than the stock ones. I like the feel of these. I really like the steering wheel in this car. That is one thing that some cars, if they get wrong, it does not jive well with me. All you have on the steering wheel is cruise control and your phone controls, and it's a small steering wheel, very small steering wheel. And it looks like a sport steering wheel. It's not, like, this is a luxury sport sedan, and it's definitely leaning more towards the sporty feel on the interior. But that being said, third gear, top of third gear coming out of a corner, and it's struggling for traction. We've got 295 tires in the rear and 265s up front, so you're not really lacking grip there. But again, it's more of a necessity thing to have those section tires on the front and rear rather than added grip. You've got a big screen up here. BMW has done it right versus the, like in the CLA 45 AMG we drove. It's just a big iPad looking thing on the dash. This dash is very nice and clean. They didn't go for anything that is going to feel immediately dated in 2 years, you know? When you look at the gauge cluster, this is what I like. This is way better than the S63's full digital dash. I like the digital dash in theory, but I know it's just gonna look dated in a couple years, and when it's all off, it doesn't look good. BMW has stuck with the, at least in this generation, I'm not sure about the new F90, but in this F10, they've stuck with analog gauges. There's an analog tach and an analog speedo, and then a few of the details are digital, but other than that, it is all analog, which is what I want, you know? Really good exhaust noise too when you let off the throttle. I think that's what I like most about it, but violent shifts into third gear. You really feel it kick yourself back. Really aggressive upshifts as well. Oh, this thing is a monster. This thing really is a monster. It's so fast. Even from 3,000 RPM. I mean, out of all the German cars I've driven, even this F10 M5, which a lot of automotive journalists have not been impressed with, I still think BMW is really near the top of the food chain when it comes to big German saloon cars. Deep into the brakes. They are a little bit soft in the pedal, but again, you're like, even 4,300 pounds, there's no way you're gonna really overheat these on the street. All right, you guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video with the BMW F10 M5. Very nice car, you know, the noise isn't quite there. It's not like the V10, but it's a monster. It's an absolute monster. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Definitely hit us up, subscribe if you haven't already. Hit us up on Instagram. Check out our podcast every week on iTunes. All that good stuff. See you next time.